Hey everyone, welcome back to my channel. My name's Tamika and today I am going to be bringing you the third installment in the Summer of Collab series that I'm doing with my booktube big sister Izzy. Don't you wanna have fun, fool around someone? So if you all are new here, Izzy and I are doing a Summer of Collabs where every other week in the summer we are bringing you a collab with a bookish friend that we have or just someone that we love in the community. So today we are doing a collab with Bree from In Love and Words, which I know you all know who Bree is. Bree is absolutely adorable and I'm so glad that she said yes to do this collab with us because I don't think I've actually done like a collab with Bree like this. I know I've done like vlog collabs with Bree, but like I don't think I've ever done a collab like to this extent. So I am really excited because today's topic is books we could not put down. So a couple of mine aren't romance, but the majority of them are. I do have 6 books that I want to talk about. So let's hop on into it. First of all, let's talk about The Initiation, which is by Nikki Sloan. This is a book that Izzy just would not shut up for me to read. I literally was just like, okay, Izzy, I will just read it. And like, I was so shocked by how much I loved it. She told me it was going to be a book that I loved. She told me this is a book that you will read and you will love. You will fly through it. It is going to be one of your favorite books of the year. So I read it and I gave it a shot, and lo and behold, Izzy was right. Because is Izzy ever wrong? But don't tell her I said that because we can't let her get the big head. The Initiation was so fast-paced and so entertaining. Literally, it's a love triangle and we are following a girl who doesn't have a choice but to marry into this family because in order to save her family, that's what she has to do. And her name is Marist, and we are following her as she has to be initiated into this very weird family. It's really interesting. It does end on a cliffhanger. I cannot tell you what the initiation is, but it's fantastic. It is so entertaining. It is so fast-paced. I literally could not put this down. I literally read all 3 books in this series in 2 days. Like, it was phenomenal. I flew through it. It was so good. There is like some coercion in here and just some like darker themes. I don't want to say it's like forced, but like it is. She doesn't really have a choice. She is like coerced into doing some sexual acts that she's not really comfortable with doing, and it is just a lot. It's super interesting. I loved it. It was a 5-star read for me, and I really recommend you go check this out because this series is phenomenal and I couldn't put it down. Next up we have a horror book, which is Womb. This one is one that I talked about recently, and it was a recent read. I read this while I was at Izzy's house, and this book I couldn't put it down. So a friend of mine, Carol, who is at Carol Marie Reads, she is a horror YouTuber, so she reads a lot of horror and a lot of thrillers. So whenever I'm in the mood for that, so I was scrolling through Instagram, just trying to like see what was out there, just, you know, minding my business, right? And then Carol had to go and post this freaking book, and she was like, this is the most disturbing thing I've ever read. This is extreme horror. I should have put this down so many times, but I just didn't. And I was like, well, damn, here I go. So I just was like, Carol, gonna have to give me some trigger warnings here. That way I kind of know what I'm walking into. She gave them to me, which I'll give them to you in just a second. And yeah, I couldn't put it down. I had to know what was gonna happen that night. Had to know. I literally read it all in one sitting. Here's your trigger warnings. We have abortion, literally on page abortion. We have murder, body horror, bodily fluids or bodily functions. So there's feces in this. I mean, I could go on and on, but that was some of the big stuff that happens. Let me go ahead and just preface this with, this is not for the faint of heart. If you're not used to extreme horror, you don't read extreme horror, you don't watch extreme horror, do not go into this. This is not for you. Like, straight up, this is not a book for someone who is new to horror and they're just trying to dip their toes in. This is a book for somebody, they're already invested in extreme horror, right? This one essentially is following a guy who hires a prostitute, and while they're in this room, he is telling her really weird stories that interconnect to each other, all while he's fucking her with dildos. It's weird, but I could not put it down. Next up, we have one that we can thank May for, because I am concerned that the entire world has read this book because of May now, because she will never shut up about it, and that is The Never King, which, if y'all didn't know, we love the fucking Never King around these parts. But this is one I could have read in one sitting, and I would have if I wouldn't have been falling asleep. This is a dark Peter Pan reverse harem. So essentially the premise of this is Peter Pan will come to the real world and kidnap a darling woman on her 18th birthday. There has been about 3 or 4 different generations of this, and this is all because Peter Pan had his shadow stolen by a darling. So they are responsible for helping him get it back. This story is so much more than that, but I can't tell you anything without spoiling everything. It was just absolutely so good. The sequel is so good, and I cannot wait for the next book in the series because it does come out in October, and I am patiently waiting for the last book in the series. I just absolutely love this. It was so hard to like not just marathon through. It was just very consumable, very much, and like I wouldn't even say it's a popcorn read because it was so much more than a popcorn read. It was so fast-paced and compelling, and I felt so strongly about every single one of these characters, and I didn't understand how that happened in the short amount of time that I spent with them, but it was fantastic. I loved it. I cannot recommend this enough. Go thank May. She's the reason this is happening. Let's also talk about a book that I don't talk about that much, but I need to a little bit more than I do, and that is 7 Sins of Snow. This is a dark reverse harem vampire romance. So this one is literally about a girl who has to take down her evil stepmother, or her evil like mother that's over the castle and over this entire town, by going and hooking up with these 7 vampire kings. And she has to like have sex with them and drink their blood in order to like fulfill her ultimate destiny to become like her ultimate powerful self. And this was such an entertaining book. Like, it was so entertaining, and I consumed this so quickly. I remember last year when I was reading this, it was during the summer, and this was a fantastic audiobook. I was having the time of my life reading this. I could not put it down. I listened to it all day at work. It was so good. I had the time of my life. My grandparents kept trying to talk to me, and I was like, hey, listen, just let me get through this book and then I'll talk to you, I promise. Just let me finish it, because I need to know what happens. I will say, the ending of it, a little slow. Drug a lot. Didn't love the ending. But the beginning, so solid. We have another fairy tale retelling, which is not shocking. I think at this point, all I read is fantasy retellings, because I just freaking love fantasy romance that are retellings. They're so good. They're so good. And I don't know what else to say other than I just love them a lot. This one in particular is Beauty and the Beast. And this one is a shifter paranormal world. We have a girl who is trying to cure a sickness that has overtaken this village, and she's going into a forbidden forest and getting this leaf in order to make a serum to cure these people, right? Or at least to like prolong their life and try to take the illness away from them a little bit. She's not found a complete cure for it yet, but she has found a way to like prolong their lives. So she's going into this forest, and the beast of this forest, the dragon, comes and takes her and says that she has been stealing from him, so she must come and pay her debt. And it kind of goes from there. We essentially are following a kingdom with a king who made a deal with a demon king, and then the king ends up passing away. So the prince is not able to actually come fully into power because the prince is under the spell of the demon king, and they have to do a whole thing to try to break it. And lo and behold, the way to break the curse is for him to find his one true mate. And none of the people within the kingdom can shift, and none of them can like access their animals, but our heroine can. So if that tells you anything about it, it's fantastic. We're gonna close this off with another horror book that I just could not put down, that I won't shut up about. Will end up in my favorite books of the year list. And before I tell you all what this book is, and before I like give you all the content warnings around this, just know this is based on a true story, and it is one of the most heartbreaking things that I've ever heard in my entire life. But it was such a compelling read. I could not put it down. I could not stop listening to it. It was absolutely phenomenal. And this was a book that just, it was everything I wanted. It made me sick. It made me upset. It made me uncomfortable. It was just everything that you could expect in a horror book, and an extreme horror. This is what I got. So the book is The Girl Next Door. This one is by Jack Ketchum. It is based off the true case of the Cynthia Likens case, which was a girl who was sold to a woman for so much money every month. Her parents were in the circus, and she has to go live with this woman, and the woman ends up torturing and killing her. In the book, it's a little bit different. In the book, her parents are dead, and she goes to live with an extended relative, and her sister go, and her sister is disabled, and the mother is very jealous of how Cynthia is seen because she is beautiful, and I think her name is Sarah in the book. I'm not 100% sure. She's a very beautiful girl, and she has interest taken in her and one of the boys in the town, and we are actually reading from the perspective of this boy. So not only are we reading from the perspective of this boy who is kind of infatuated with her, and we have a guardian who is taking advantage of someone who she's supposed to be caring for. We slowly see her be tortured by not only the mother and the guardian, but the entire town, this entire group of people, and we are graphically described like how she's tortured and how she ends up dying. It is such a tragic and sad case, and I loved the way that this was portrayed. I loved that it was hard to read. I just in general had a hard time reading this, but I couldn't stop. It was such a good story, and I just think Jack Ketchum did such a good job with this portrayal, and I couldn't stop reading it. I couldn't look away. It was just, it is going to be one of my favorite books of the year. Don't forget to go ahead and check out Izzy and Bree's videos down in the description. If you're still here, leave me a mirror emoji down in the comments, and I'll chat with you in the next one.
Don't you wanna have fun? Don't you wanna have some fun? Yeah, these babies said that they don't got a future like